Hello. It is great to be here, actually. I haven't been challenged to kind of walk into a group of aspiring, I hope, politicians, and those of you who've made great contributions to your community. I would just say to you, as a start, we all come from different places, but I grew up in a very small community, a vibrant community, however, Kimberley in the East Kootenays. And one of the things when you grow up in a smaller community that doesn't have, an overpopulation, but has people having to come together, to work together, to play together, to create energy together, to become a productive community. So when I talk to you, most of my role has been as a public servant because I've believed in public service for my entire life. I had the privilege of working for not-for-profits for many, many years, and as such, met Carol, and we did a bunch of work. I think I was the first, in fact, I know I was the first female employee that was hired by Boys and Girls Club to be an outreach worker in their community. And that might age me, because there's lots of young women and older women doing that kind of work now. But at that time, I was one of the very first ones. And it was one of my ways when I came to university to support myself to go to university, but one of the ways that captured my embracing of the importance of community engagement in public service and in public life. I had the pleasure of working for 5 mayors. I was at the City of Vancouver for 20 years in many leadership capacities, but finally as the city manager. And one of the things I learned about politicians and about the way I wanted to govern is that you want the smartest people you can to form your team. And when you have your team of people who, whether it's the police chief or the fire chief or head of planning or housing development, you want the very best you can get from around the world. And we managed to do that. And then you develop a very strong policy framework so that when you have new mayors and new politicians coming in, you have an opportunity through a policy framework to lay out how community engagement should happen, how decisions should be made, and going forward. Sam and I had the wonderful opportunity of working up to and during the Olympics, and went to Torino together and accepted the kind of passing of the torch from Torino to Vancouver. But the reason the Vancouver Olympics were so successful is that it began with 4 or 5 of us sitting in a room, working out ahead of time what were the principles of how we were going to work together. And with blessing from politicians who would sit with me in the senior team, and we would say, what are the things that are most important to the City of Vancouver? So programs like Legacy Now that engaged the community and involved all of British Columbia and all of Canada in being individuals participated and were part of it. Large programs got developed because of it. But it was giving back to the people, not just to the elite athletes in the community. And I can only tell you how proud I was when Sam stood on the stage and waved the flag and said, here we go. And, out of that came one of the most enriching experiences in our country's history for a long, long time. Those of you who had the opportunity to participate, volunteer, whatever you did, will remember that. But it took the commitment and big agreements before the City of Vancouver and Whistler were ever awarded the Olympics. It took agreements, it took meeting together, but it took the trust of the politicians and the leaderships of the day. I can remember, Chris, traveling with your dad to many places to ensure that we embrace community at its very basic level. And one of the things that happened during the early days of the Olympics, I think those of you in the room will get a kick out of this. Whistler, as a municipality, of course, wanted their name to be highlighted. And one of the things we did is that the mayor then of Whistler and Mayor Philip Owen we went to the provincial government, said maybe we should change the name of our cities to Whistler, Vancouver, and Vancouver, Whistler, so that people can see that this is something that happens on behalf of the country and two cities. It just wasn't Vancouver who was doing all this work. So I don't know what you want me to say, Sam, or what you as a group want me to say, but a couple of things struck me, Mike. I could not agree more. I have worked with, probably thousands of politicians. I just came from Alberta. I was up there for 4 days doing some work and sort of hearing how they're reacting to the federal government's position, thinking about Vancouver and where we are at with housing issues and the red tape that's there. We need politicians who are authentic. I couldn't agree with you more. And that the kind of dialogue that is going on in our community, we're all kind of sick and tired of it. I want us to go back to 10, 15 years ago when we had civility, when we talked to one another about issues, not about personalities, not about, we're kind of just tired of it. But you know, when you have a leader that models confrontation and deception and illegal activity, the rest of the province or the rest of the country legitimizes it, and therefore honors in it in a kind of way that doesn't serve the majority of our country. I would say to you that one of the reasons that the mayors that I worked with were successful, that we were the drivers, we were the people that would sit with council and give them options and choices. There was a clear delineation between what the politics might happen in the community and what the decisions that needed to be made for the majority of the citizens of the city of Vancouver. If I couldn't get up in the morning and look myself in the eye as the leader of the public service for the city of Vancouver, if I couldn't look myself in the eye and know that what I was bringing to council was the very best work of innovative, creative people, and I wasn't giving council options for their choice to make about what they wanted to do, I was not doing my job. I had the mayor, Chris, maybe because you're here, Philip would never be influenced by developers, by people in the financial world, or people who want neither with Sam. They would always make sure that the expert, the people that were hired in the public service that could advise them, gave them the very best advice, and they never were caught out and found themselves in an owing position. And what I mean by that, they weren't bound by making a promise. At one point, my senior team said to me, Judy, we want to get pagers. I said, are you sure you want a pager? I mean, we're going back a few years. You can tell you guys are all looking at me kind of like I'm crazy. But we did have pagers. And I said, well, who in the senior team wants a pager? So a couple of them got pagers. I said, okay, get a pager. And they said, well, Judy, why aren't you getting a pager? I said, I'd like you to imagine that our politicians find themselves at a community meeting and they're asked a question and they give the wrong answer. Or they they buzz you on your pager and they say, what's the answer to this question? And you don't really know why they've been asked that question. You don't know what the policy framework is, and you answer. I can tell you the police chief turned in his pager ASAP and said, you were right. I guess I would just close by going back to something Mike said, and that is to be successful, you have to be curious. You have to you have to know that you're going to make mistakes, but don't be apologetic for the kind of errors you might make on your journey to be serving your community, because you're doing the best you can. But make sure that you're very, very well informed about what the real issues are. Not the issues that are hitting the headlines, but about the real issues that are impacting and affecting community. Because I think that when you know that, it sometimes does change your decision, and it's an authentic decision. and often the decision that the community really needs. So that's it. Just be authentic, be curious. Public service continues to give me a wonderful life, and I would encourage any of you to kind of grab it by the throat and just get into it, because you want to change the way our communities are going, because the way they're going right now, we need younger, brighter, authentic, true people to lead our nation. So good luck.